Morning. Welcome to the Legislative Coffee. This is our fourth one of the season, and we appreciate everyone being here this morning. My name is Daryl McCune. I'm the moderator this morning. Make sure to use the microphone to ask your questions today. This is being broadcast live on Facebook, and it will be posted on the Government Access channel. We do have Lewis Reed that's going to be taking the microphone around, so he will be in charge of that. Only one question per person at a time, and you may also have one follow-up question to the previously asked question. Hold applause to allow for additional questions. You may ask a question, but statements are not allowed. Please turn your cell phones off. And remember that not all of the legislators need to answer every question. So if you want to direct it to a specific person, that would probably be a good idea. Or if you know that it's something that you understand more, then maybe it's not something the other person is taking care of. We'd like to thank our sponsors. That's Ottawa Area Chamber of Commerce and Legislative Action Committee, Franklin County Farm Bureau Association, COFO Radio, AT&T. Our platinum sponsors are Price Chopper, Calmar of Ottawa, Advent Health Ottawa, Kansas State Bank, Ottawa University, Keith King State Farm Insurance. We also appreciate the City of Ottawa for providing this facility and for filming, and for Ottawa Library for making the coffee. We are very happy to have Representative Barth, Representative Schmoy, and Senator Tyson with us this morning. We would like to ask the legislators to give us a brief 30-second explanation of what legislation they were most proud to support this year. So we might start with Representative Barth.
Actually, I'm going to pass it off to start, so I'm going to think about what I want to say
Okay,
first on
sure.
that one, if you don't mind.
I will start, and the legislation that I'm most proud of, I think, aside from the work that we've been doing to try to cut red tape for our local Ottawa and Franklin County businesses, is that we are headed back into veto session to discuss abortion coercion, because it is an incredibly important topic when we are talking about women and giving them the right to choose. It's an incredibly important topic when we're talking about making sure that women aren't being threatened, not with bodily harm, not with financial harm, and not with withholding documentation for those who are being trafficked. It's incredibly important this day and age, given everything that we know about the trafficking, the human trafficking that happens here in Kansas, that we protect these women who just want to be able to make the choice to carry their own child. The fact is that we talk about choice all the time. We need to make sure that these women have a voice. We need to make sure that they are not subjugated to being threatened. The reason why it's important to me is personal. But the reason why it's important to Kansas is because it's important for us to protect these women from threats of harm. Thank you so much for being here. This is so vitally important to have these conversations.
Well, welcome and thank you for coming. Thank you to our sponsors. It's a great morning out, a little brisk for this time of year, but I'm glad to be here. Probably Karen Tyson, the 12th Senate District. You guys know where the district is. One of the, we've worked on major issues, and I thank Rebecca for her comments. Representative Schmoe, she's right, that's a very important topic. One of the major topics that I've worked on, and you guys know this, is tax and tax cuts, tax relief. And I am very thankful that we have put together a great package The governor is considering vetoing it, which is amazing and disappointing, especially after the package passed unanimously in the House, Democrats and Republicans. It was a bipartisan vote in the Senate. 2 Democrats passed because they knew it was good policy, but they didn't want to go against their governor. I hope they represent their constituents if there is a veto override. It would exempt Social Security from state income tax. It was income tax for all Kansans, especially low income and medium income families. It has a little bit of property tax relief in there. It starts good policy on property tax relief. It also would move the food, grocery sales tax, state sales tax, to 0 July 1st. It is a very good package. It does remove the LAVTR. I warned you guys, if we didn't try to get the $1.5 million or something for that, it would just go away, and that's what's happening. It is going away, but we are getting some property tax relief for it. So it's good policy, and I hope that if she does choose to veto it, that we can get an override. We have another tax package that I would consider almost as important, and that's property tax relief. It has several provisions in it. It met stall in the House. I'm hoping the House does a motion to reconsider and sends it to the governor. They were misled by some taxpayer lobbyists, taxpayer-funded lobbyists. I think that's such an oxymoron or conflict of interest that they're using our taxpayer dollars to get more taxpayer dollars and not looking out for the best interest of Kansas. So we've worked on some great policy, election, other stuff, but I would say tax is probably the most, the one that I've worked probably the most hours on this session.
And I'm Representative Carrie Barth for House District 5, and I would say that we've done several different things, but the one thing that I will just expand on, and I won't reiterate everything that Senator Tyson said, but the taxes really was the biggest thing. I mean, that was the number one thing that we heard from everyone, and that's why in the House, we passed it, both parties, 100% in favor of the tax bill. The one thing I'll expand on is, you know, it does a lot of good, but there were some things that I wish it did a little bit better. There was an amendment on the House floor that the representative from Paola brought forth that would have taken the homeowners, like the home property exemption from not just from 40,000 to 100,000, but actually take it to 175,000. And that was something I thought that would have saved each family about another $300, I think was the number. So it didn't pass though, but those are just things that like I did support and I went up to the well, which is what we call the podium there at the front of the House floor, and did speak in favor of that. So that's that was kind of one of the things I think that I wanted to bring forward to everybody. So thanks.
Thank you very much. We will now open up the floor for questions from the audience today. So if you have a question, just raise your hand, and Louis will bring the microphone around.
Oh, sorry. Good morning. My question is about the budget that was said to be a laser focus for Congress on disabled, money for disabled, funds for disabled, where people have been on the list for 10 years. Children are growing up without help. And the money allocated for that doesn't really do much for that list of 7,500, not when there's 35% more of them in the last 5 years. It just doesn't even come close. I think it was 23 million. But we were able to send 15.7 million for our National Guard to go to Texas. It just seems like such a dichotomy. We should be using our dollars just here in Kansas, in my opinion. And so I'd like to know, why the laser focus faded or missed its mark so badly.
Did you
I
have
can-
a specific person
Yeah.
you wanted to ask, or did you want to ask?
She said why we missed, I think why we missed that, is kind of the question of maybe why we didn't do as much potentially. Is that basically the question?
Why?
Yeah, I can take that one for you. So, because it did go through the two committees I'm on from, well, not the budget piece of it necessarily, on the full appropriations budget, which was the final budget. So, first and foremost, I too agree that we should probably try to keep our money in Kansas a little bit more. To most perspective, I look at the federal government and what they're doing and sending money outside the United States in billions and trillions of dollars, in my opinion, is not okay. Unfortunately, here locally, just as a reminder, the governor did not have any money at all for disability at all in the budget. So we, as a committee on social services, led by the Republican Party, did add that into the budget, reducing each of the waiver lists by 500 per. And then that went to the appropriations budget as well from there. And the appropriations budget's where a lot of things got added into it. I overall voted no. I did not support the overall budget. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of update on what did happen with the budget.
So I would add to that, the governor's done that for several years now. Not funded disability programs or programs that we know need to be funded. You can go look at her proposed budget online and then look at what was added to it by the legislature. It's kind of her way of coming in with a lower budget, then the legislature increases, and she says, oh, look at them, they're spending more than I recommended. Well, of course they are, because it's programs that are needed.
If you would, state your name.
Sure
before
will.
we
Mike
answer.
Skidmore, Ottawa. Thanks for being here, ladies. I appreciate you doing this for us. And so I kind of wanted to ask about TIF, tax increment financing. I hear that topic's coming up in Topeka, and we've certainly used that a lot here in Ottawa. It's really benefited our community. And to avoid that being a statement, as Darrell had said, let me just ask a question. What do you think of that? And then a follow-up question to Senator Tyson. Now that Jake Latuerne has announced his retirement, do you wish to use this venue to announce your candidacy for the 2nd District?
Well, that's interesting. I am focused on running for the Senate, and currently I am working on tax relief, and we've got to get these tax bills across the line. So that is where my focus is right now. The other thing, the TIFs, you've seen legislation, there is, so I'll just talk about it. I spoke to somebody in the audience before. We have all of these tax incentive programs for businesses, and TIF is a local tool that's used. But the thing is, and TIF isn't so much in this, there are other programs though, tax abatement programs, 10-year tax relief, that they give to these corporations and these businesses, and then the homeowners, they say, oh, well, it doesn't impact you and it's going to bring more development. Well, we haven't seen that over the years. And so one of the things that we did was the transparency bill. The revenue neutral. Local government, some love it, some hate it, but new development is included in that, in the growth. Because that way, if you're going to remain revenue neutral and not increase your property taxes, then it truly is a benefit for homeowners and other property owners in the area. If you continue to grow government and increase property taxes, it is not a benefit to have those incentive programs. So that's what we're taking a hard look at. What incentive programs are working, what ones are not. And I'll give you a prime example. There was a legislative post audit on HPIP. Are any of you familiar with that program? There are some businesses that use HPIP in Peak in Franklin County. But HPIP, in a 3-year period, it was over $1 billion was given out. If you look at one report, it's $3 billion was given out in a 3-year period. I don't think that report is accurate, but I do know it's over $1 billion in 3 years was given to picking winners and losers. Just think if those tax credits weren't given to just select companies, how much we could lower income tax by. I mean, we can benefit everybody and not have government picking in winners and losers. That's why we're taking a close look at those programs to see which ones work and which ones don't. Look at the Star Bonds project that failed. I mean, you've got, who picks up the tab? Who pays for those bonds after those programs fail? When they succeed, that's, they work. But if you think about that Star Bonds, if you're not familiar with it, it's a bond taken out, and the business, that bond is used to pay for the infrastructure for that business. So if you look, the first Star Bond project was NASCAR, but it grew into that district to where they were building theaters, a furniture store, car dealerships. That's not what that program was started for. It was supposed to bring unique entertainment or industry into the area. And now they put a proviso in the budget for a Star Bonds project for Wichita State University. So that means the bonds will be taken out, government bond, or the bond will be taken out, and sales tax collected in that area will not go to the state or the local government. It goes to pay off that bond. And that private company owns that land, that infrastructure after that bond's paid off. That is government picking winners and losers. I just don't think that's a program. 2 other states started a Star Bonds program. No other state has it now in the nation. If it was really working and really good policy, then don't you think other states would have modeled after it by now? So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at to see which programs are actually working, which ones are just private businesses' way of using government money, and it's on the burden of the rest of the taxpayers.
My name is Teddy Love, and I live here on the north side of Ottawa. I am also here today representing Life Care. Kelsey Smith could not be here, who is our executive director. And so to that end, Rebecca, I want to thank you so much for your comments, and all of you for everything that you're doing right now and the long hours you have put in, the long hours you have put in. Thank you for everything you've done. And also to that end, Life Care's banquet is coming up on May 7th. And anyone who is interested in the room and attending, I can get you an invitation if you'll just let me know afterwards. But today I'm here because I'm very concerned in our nation about the WHO pandemic treaty. And so, and all the comments I'm going to say and the question I'm going to ask you is to my best understanding of all of this. As Senator Barth has said, the WHO tried, I'm sorry, Representative, I'm sorry. As she said, the WHO tries, and the WHO is the World Health Organization. They try every year to push things, through to different countries. There's 194 member countries.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to ask you to get the question.
Oh, okay. So are you all familiar with this? And Marshall and Moran are both familiar with this, and they tried to push a bill through, didn't pass. They're both, looking at standing against this because it threatens the sovereignty of our nation. It really does. Anything they declare as a pandemic, they can, come in and with their authority. So as Kansans, though, Louisiana just passed legislation that protects Louisiana from this pandemic treaty. So I'm asking what you know and what is being done in our state to protect us should this go forward on May 24th with the Biden administration.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the question. I know that we do laser focus on Kansas a lot, and we also are actively looking at what is going on in the rest of the nation. We are looking at what's going on around the world, and quite honestly, we're living in very tumultuous times right now. When you look around, it's scary. When you look around, there are people making decisions on behalf of nations, sovereign nations. As far as when that comes back to America, when that comes back to the United States, we are sovereign. The United States was built in such a way that Kansas operates very much like its own country. We are sovereign as a state. We are part of a united country, a united, all states working together under one federal government. To that end, we do have to watch what is happening on the federal level. We do have to make sure that we are having those conversations with our representation on the federal level. But we can also look to other sovereign states, such as Louisiana, and find out what's going on there, what the bill actually says, what it does, and what we could use out of that bill here in Kansas to protect our citizens from people in other countries making our own decisions for us, whether it's health decisions or whether it's any other decision. Here in Kansas, we the people are in charge of Kansas. We are honored to be able to go to Topeka and have these conversations in rooms that, quite frankly, we can't all fit in at the same time. So we're honored to be able to go up and have those conversations and bring them back to situations like this. But Kansans ought to be determining what happens in Kansas. And so, yes, we are actively watching that bill. We will also watch the outcomes of that, see if there are any lawsuits that come about because of it, see if there's any implementation that works or doesn't work. So we get to use them kind of as a test subject while we tread into the water of how can we best protect Kansans. So thank you so much for the question.
I actually would like to expand on that just a tad, if you don't mind. I would just add on to it that I think it's highly unconstitutional with that. I mean, first and foremost, if you look at, I'm on the local government committee, and we hear all the time, and I would say almost everybody in this room says this, we want local control, local control, local control. This is the opposite of local control. And then there's home rule that's used as well, which brings back that local control. And then the Constitution states also individual liberty. This takes away everyone's individual liberty, so it's highly unconstitutional. I can't believe there's anybody at the federal level even halfway considering this, so it's complete insanity, in my opinion.
Hi, I'm Eileen Spickler. You guys know me, and I just have a question or I have a couple of comment. First of all, the WHO can't mandate anything. They cannot force anything. They make recommendations. And then a country decides what they want to do. But I have a question. If you break a leg, do you go to a doctor or do you try and fix it yourself?
Is that question
That's
for us?
it's for everybody. It's for everybody. Yeah, it's for you actually. If you break your leg, do you go to the doctor?
Yes.
If you have a brain tumor, do you have brain surgery by a doctor who's scientifically trained?
I would assume that would be someone's decision whether or not they would have surgery.
Okay. I mean, that's kind of, I mean, unless they're going to die, I would think that most people would assume that they would want to have brain surgery. So if we believe in evidence-based medicine by doctors, why do we not believe that wearing a mask can stop a pandemic? We tell kids in childcare, we tell parents who have kids in childcare, and I see you rolling your eyes, to stay home if they have a fever over 100 of whatever, Why
Not
are we so
rolling our
wait,
eyes.
let me why are we just so opposed to common sense?
So we're
That's my
not
question.
opposed to common sense, not rolling our eyes because of your statement at all. The sad thing is,
the other questioner was.
okay, I was going to say I wouldn't do that. That's absolutely rude. So, no, I'm not rolling my eyes. Your question is a fair one, and it is individual freedom is what we believe in. So we believe that individuals should be able to decide their health care.
But if I have diabetes and I am under a doctor's care for diabetes, right? Does that mean that I can't go to I have to be I have to, I mean, you're imposing your personal freedoms on me because I can't be around you if we all don't just wear a mask to be safe. It's not trying to make people get rid of guns, which
You-
Democrats aren't for anyways.
You
but
have
it's
the
just-
option to wear a mask in this room. You have
I
the
do.
absolute.
You're
and
right,
the
but in
others
the
have
middle of
option
there's not a
to.
pandemic right now. In the middle of a pandemic, how can that be an option?
So
There's actually evidence and studies,
Yeah.
OSHA, everyone, this has been studied for years and years about masking, ventilation, all types of mechanisms that can be utilized scientifically. And actually masks don't work the way that they're supposed to work from the perspective, I think, that you're thinking of it. So there is data and evidence, and it goes back to that individual liberty and choice. And you can choose to go to the grocery store or not, you can do pickup, and there's tons of options in life, and we all have those options, and we all have our own choices on healthcare as well, so I think that's.
Let's not get into a real debate here. Okay, thank you. Was there any other answer?
David Warren, and I was just curious, now that Jackson County has denied the Royals a thing in a new stadium, and the Chiefs are threatening to move, what's the scuttlebutt running around Topeka about how much money that Kansas is willing to kick out? I know they said, industrial revenue bonds or something that are kind of bypass the legislature.
They're
But like you're saying, they've got to build the infrastructure, so.
Well, they actually started a sports fund a couple of years with a gambling bill that passed, and they are putting money towards it. There was meetings. They are trying to entice the Chiefs to come over to Kansas. They are talking also another Star Bonds project for it. There's several tax incentives. I just think we need to tread cautiously. The Apex project that passed the legislature, that is a thorn, and I think some legislators are realizing that it was not a good deal. So two corporations could get over $1 billion, and the state could write them a check because it is a refundable tax program. So if you look at the numbers that are coming out on these tax cuts, one of the line items is this Apex bill. And next year, they're anticipating taxes collected, revenue, to be down $95 million because of the Panasonic plant. And they're anticipating revenues to be up next year because the second corporation has not been issued the tax incentives from the Apex bill. So again, it's government picking winners and losers. We need to be very cautious. I know a lot of people are excited. We did have a license plate for the Chiefs and the Royals. I voted against it. If you guys want a Chiefs and Royals license plate, you're absolutely welcome to it. But now that money goes to organizations that aren't in Kansas. It goes to Chiefs organizations, Royals, and we are competing with the organizations that are in Kansas. That because when you get one of those license plates, like Wichita, or there's going to be a Leavenworth one now, they get money, proceeds go to those organizations for those license plates. And I just didn't want to see Kansas dollars going to another state. Not that I didn't want you to have a Chiefs plate, but if the Chiefs Stadium's in Kansas, then so be it. Then maybe.
Well, I wasn't necessarily for or against it. I just wondered what the rumor was floating around Topeka and how jacked up everybody was.
They're being approached.
Because right now, the new stadium they put up for one of the soccer teams has no parking. And they're going to charge, what, $160 to park? And,
Well, if you want to get me going, talk about the 20-some million dollars that are going to a World Cup soccer tournament. That is offensive in the budget. That could have gone to other projects. There's my husband keeps saying that this budget has so much pork, it looks like a bacon factory. And I think he's right.
I will touch on this question. The reason why it failed was because taxpayers realized that this is their money that's going to fund this. And so as the representative, if you are opposed to the idea of using your taxpayer money in order to help develop this kind of stadium in this kind of area, I need to know that. If you're for it, I need to know it. I need to know what you feel is the best use of your taxpayer money. It's your money. And it won't be built in our backyard. It will be closer than out in Hayes, but it won't be bringing business here to Ottawa and Franklin County. And so I will need to know what your plan is for what you want your tax dollars spent on. That's the ultimate. And so regardless of conversations that may or may not be happening, we need to be having conversations as well.
Hi, Judy Davis Cole, and I represent myself, but also AARP of Kansas, over 200,000 members of Kansas, who are all, not all, majority in favor of Medicaid expansion. So, Senator Tyson, you and I are going to do some tug of war again. We've done it in the past, but this question is for you. So here we go again. There's a new survey from Kansas Speaks that was published a year and a half ago in November from the Docking Institute of Public Affairs at Fort Hays, Kansas. So it was a study done in Kansas, for Kansas, by Kansans that indicate some of the highest numbers I've seen so far. 72% of the respondents are in favor of Medicaid expansion. And there are some other numbers that are even more impressive than that. But there is a motion up in Topeka waiting for you, Senator Tyson, when you get back, and the other senators too. And that motion is to bring Medicare expansion legislation from the committee, Senate committee, onto the Senate floor. It takes 24 votes to do that. And then once it's on the floor, if that's successful, it takes another 27 votes to bring that legislation up what they call above the line so that you can then debate it, which Medicaid expansion has not had a debate up in our capital for years. It's really unfortunate. So my question for you, Senator Tyson, is, can we count on you to be one of those 24 votes to bring that legislation to the floor? And if it's successful, can we count on you to be one of the 27 votes that will allow it to finally be debated? Thank you.
So that's kind of a misnomer what you said. It has been debated in Topeka. It may not have been debated on the legislative floor, but it absolutely has been debated. So that's misleading, that to say that it's not been debated or talked about in Topeka.
I said on the floor.
Did you say on the floor? Okay, thank you. I want to be clear about that because there were hearings this year too. And what's interesting, I would love to see the questions that were asked on the poll. You guys know I'm a data person. Well, it matters how those questions were asked. Because I could ask you I can frame the debate. And that's not what we need. We need actual factual information on it. And I've always said that I would absolutely look at and support a Kansas solution for Medicaid expansion. That's not what they're proposing here. They are proposing full-out Obamacare that has not worked in other states. In fact, Iowa is trying to get out of it. They signed up for it. Indiana signed up for it with a work requirement, and then the president told them, oh no, you can't do that. So they're having problems there. So if you look at our neighboring states, there are many issues that are not being addressed in this legislation. As far as floor debates, we've had a few of those attempts to pull bills out of committee, and it's interesting that they waited till veto session to do that. So that in itself is a big red flag and tells you this is a political play, not an actual play to get it done. Because if they really wanted that debate, they would have made this motion during session. And that's not what they're doing, and they know that the timeline is limited on this. And they know that veto session, you don't go on general orders, which is when votes are brought above the line. So it's really disheartening that they waited until the very last day in the last hour of regular session to make this motion. You have to ask yourself why. And that's what's going on here. So
Is that a no?
I will listen to the debate and make my decision. Well, we will debate the motion on the floor. It's not, so.
You would bring it, you would vote to bring it to.
No, I did not say that. I said I'll listen to the information and I'll make my decision. But I see it as a political play, and I do not support a political play. So right now, I am in a no to bring it above the line. And they know that. They're counting the votes. They've got 24 votes to bring it above the line. They do not have, or to bring it to the floor, to bring it, pull it out of committee. They've got the 24 votes. They do not, it's within 1 or 2 votes. They do not have the 27 to try to force it above the line. And the odds are because they waited until veto session. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you do this during session? You guys tell me. Why didn't you have them bring it up during session? I mean, you asked for it over and over again. I know you fought for this. But why wasn't that motion made during session? There were motions to bring bills out of committee all through session this year in the Senate. Now, the House, they moved these bills because there's a 10-day rule. And they kept moving the bills so that that motion could never be made in the House. The Senate, we didn't do that. We left the bills where they were. Leadership does this. We don't decide. Leadership does this. But why didn't senators make that motion during regular session? There was a resolution, and I absolutely supported it, to stop the pay raises. In fact, I introduced the resolution to stop the pay raises for the legislature. And we had co-sponsors, and that motion was made by the same person that's made another motion to bring a bill out of committee, but he waited until the 11th hour. He didn't wait on the resolution. So why are they waiting on these? That's what I'm asking myself. Is it a political play just to posture? And it appears to be.
Hi, my name is Sandy Stannert, and I have some questions or clarifications in regards to the tax bill, the House Bill 2036. You stated before abolishing income tax on Social Security, abolishing the food tax in July, amount of property exempt from state property tax. But in there was overhauling the tax system and going from 3 to 2 brackets. I'd like to know what that percentage is. I'd also like for you to clarify how many millionaires do we have in the state of Kansas? How many billionaires do we have in the state of Kansas? And has there ever been any consideration or as an amendment on this tax? If we're going to talk a flat tax rate, let's quit letting out the corporations and the rich CEOs get by with tax deductions. I believe if we put a flat line, if you make $500,000 a year, that you pay a set tax rate, period, no deductions. Because I think it would add, because from what I understand in reading about this, there's a chance that we're going to lose $600 million a year to state revenues. So if you could answer those questions.
Well, I'd be glad to, and the reason I didn't go into more detail was we had 30 seconds at the beginning. I'm glad to talk tax. You guys know that. So it does go to a 2-bracket system. The House proposed a 3-bracket system, but the 3rd bracket was at 0. The Senate proposed a single bracket system. That was House substitute for SB 300, and then Senate Bill 539. And so what we did was the Senate passed theirs, the House didn't pick it up. The House passed theirs, the Senate leadership, they both chose not to pick each other's bills up. So we get to conference committee and we get we get the signal that the governor, the speaker, and the Senate president got together and they negotiated a tax bill. And that became the first version of 2036, okay? The House overwhelmingly rejected that legislation. I mean, overwhelmingly sent a good statement said they're not going to take this. They do not want that bill. It was not good for Kansans. And what was interesting then was the tax chairman from the House and myself, of course, were looking at this and working very diligently on it. And coincidentally, we're merging both of those bills that did pass each chamber on our own, and we came up with almost the exact same language. And so we had gone to our leadership and said, this is what we'd like to try. And they said, well, let's get the numbers. And so we ran the numbers, and interestingly, it's within the first year, it's a little bit higher. That is the 600 million that she's talking about. But in the years out, it's approximately $30 million difference from what the governor had proposed with leadership. So it's a really good tax bill. I mean, it checks almost every single box. Is it perfect? No. But what I had done and what Adam had done on our own, we had taken SB 300 and SB 539 and we had merged those and said, what are the good items out of here? What does each chamber want? What's going to help Kansans? And that's how we came up with, we went from a 3 and a 1, so we compromised to a 2 bracket system. It will be 5.55 and 5.15, and those are the 2 brackets. But what it does for the low income, and this is where I think it's very artful. Of course, I might think that because it was my idea, but the personal exemption hadn't been touched in years. It hadn't even been looked at. And I was looking at that number. Instead of the standard deduction, let's look at the personal exemption. And that's what we did. We increased the personal exemption. Right now, your personal exemption is $2,250 per person you can claim on your income tax. So what we did was we changed this. It's a little over $9,000. I don't have the exact numbers with me now. For an individual, it's over $18,000 for a married couple filing jointly, and then for every dependent, it goes up to $2,350. So that's how I say it's helping families. It's so that is a subtraction off the top of your taxes. You subtract that number before you even off your adjusted gross income. And then if you take the standard deduction, you take it. Well, we also increased the standard deduction in that bill. It increased by 3%. So if you're single, it went up 3%, jointly 3%, across the board 3% increase on the standard deduction. So you take that off the top of your taxes. So there is thousands of people that are going to benefit and pay 0 state income tax. And these aren't the rich. These are the low and middle income tax families. Security. Yeah. And Social Security going to 0. That actually does help the wealthier Kansans. Most people don't realize that because, but they like the idea of saying no income tax on Social Security. But if you make $75,000 or less right now with your Social Security, you don't pay state income tax on that. It's exempt. But what we're going to do is exempt all Social Security from state income tax. So you don't have to worry about the cliff. The nice thing on that is that cliff, because if you were $75,001, you paid it on it all. And so there's older people that do receive Social Security that would like to continue working, and they would hit that cliff. So they can continue working without worrying about that. But it's your Social Security that's exempt, not the whole income tax bill. So it's good policy, really good policy. And you're, buying into the governor's soundbite that this legislation helps the rich. Well, okay, they're paying in a higher percentage than any other Kansas, or a higher dollar amount, not percentage. They pay in the same percentage, but they're paying in a higher dollar amount because they make more. So of course, they're going to save more in the dollar amount. It's just like when you go to the grocery store on the sales tax on food. The person buying steaks is obviously gonna save more than the person buying hamburger, ground beef. So it's just common sense. Don't buy into the rhetoric. This really does, I have fought so hard for this because this 2017 tax increases that were passed, I fought against those. Those were the most harmful to low income and medium income families. And I did not support it. I tried to convince my colleagues. They did not. They just wanted to get rid of the brown bag tax cuts. And that's not what that legislation did. What that legislation did was increased the state income tax for low income, and that's where most of that burden went to. So, of course, a tax cut is going to, if you're wealthy and you're in the 5-7 bracket right now, you're going to see a tax cut because you're going down to 5.55. But so is wealthy in Kansas, by the way, is anything over $60,000 married filing jointly. Anything over $60,000, you're in that 5.7 bracket right now. I don't consider that wealthy. So this is good policy moving us in the right direction. There's other items in the bill too. The privilege tax, there is a decrease on it too. It's not as rich as what was first proposed because the decrease is based off of the Apex bill, corporate income tax decrease. So we're just matching the privilege tax decrease to what was in the Apex bill.
I have like one little follow-up to that
Sure.
too, because what Senator Tyson shared is a lot of good information. And I know that one of the things that we've heard since we were talking about taxes this year is that, you know, we're just benefiting the wealthy, and the wealthy are getting kind of some breaks, which I was like, okay, well, I want to see what that looks like. And I read an article, and I wish I could remember the article. I read a lot of things, but it basically stated that the 1% of Kansans, the wealthiest of Kansas, pay like a massive majority of the state tax that we actually have in Kansas. So I thought that was really interesting because they are paying their fair share. They're actually, I forget the number, but it was, you know, well above 50%.
The wealthiest are, they make $67,000 or more, is that what you're saying?
No, that's what I
No,
said.
That's what Karen's,
Yeah,
Senator
so
Tyson said.
what I'm saying is if you're married filing jointly in Kansas currently, your adjusted gross income, after you subtract your standard deduction and everything, anything above $60,000 is taxed at 5.75. Anything from $30,000 to $60,000 is taxed at 5.25. Anything below that is taxed at 3.1. So you're considered wealthy. If you're a household, you're a teacher and you're making over 60,000, you are in the highest tax bracket in the state of Kansas. So that's what we're trying to address here.
But will changing the tax bracket change that $67,000?
It does. It's 60,000. It actually lowers it, but the exemption is so great that less people. It is not a tax increase for anyone in the state of Kansas. This is a tax cut for every Kansas income taxpayer.
You didn't address how many millionaires and billionaires.
I don't know those numbers. You can look those up. They are, yeah, I don't know those numbers. To me, I'm focused on my district. I can tell you about that. The state of Kansas, to me, it's a fair and level playing field. That's what we're trying to get to. Absolutely fair and level playing field. So we want to help those in need, and we want to make Kansas a state that people want to come and stay and live in.
As a former Kansas school teacher, I can say that the vast majority of teachers don't make anywhere close to $60,000 unless you've been teaching 40 years with a master's degree. Then you're out in the cold. Anyway,
Actually, in western Kansas, their salaries are much higher.
I guess we should have moved there, Terry.
Yeah.
The other concern-
and superintendents are easily six figures.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
maybe
my
I should have
nephew
said
was.
staff, or, yeah. I'm just making a general statement that the analogy that's used in the Capitol is if you have two teachers, two income, household is over the 60,000.
And as far as how our tax dollars should be spent, I am a firm believer, having been in this classroom as a teacher for many years. The school vouchers, I last year was hired to tutor some children who were homeschooled, and because the homeschoolers, that's become a vast thing in a lot of the poorer communities, especially because people can't even afford to get to school sometimes. And these kids were junior high level and above, did not have in many subjects a second or third grade level adequacy. They had been homeschooled for several years. There is zero accreditation, certification, licensing, or anything. So my question is, why would you support school vouchers? Because I feel like public taxes and funds should go to public schools first and foremost.
I can
Always.
take that one. Sitting on the education and the K through 12 budget committees. First of all, we are not having any discussions on savings accounts, education savings accounts this year. We're not addressing that in any of the legislation that is currently being looked at. On top of that, I really have to address the fact that it's not just homeschools that are hitting that low mark. We are seeing that right here in Ottawa. We are seeing kids stuck in level 2. We are seeing across Franklin County kids having a hard time getting into level 3. Now, what I mean by that is that in the school scoring system, you've got 4 levels. And when we are looking at that, and when we are having people come in and address us as far as the legislature that is responsible for how our tax money is spent in schools, they're saying, no, level 2's fine. Level 2's not that big of a deal. Level 2 means that they are ready for college. It's okay. Level 2 is definitely not where we need our future of Kansas to be. Level 2 out of 4? And they're telling us that that's acceptable? Absolutely, to your point, we cannot allow these kids, whether they're homeschooled or whether they're public school, to fall through the cracks and not get past a level 2. In our Constitution here in Kansas, it says that we have to at least meet a level 3. That's our obligation to our students, is to at least meet a level 3, if not a level 4. And when we have people coming in as a representation for our public schools, and they are saying, don't worry about level 2's good enough, that means we're not meeting that obligation. That's not on the legislature that we're not meeting that obligation. That's because that's the expectation that is being presented in our local districts. I firmly believe that our staff here in Franklin County, our staff in District 59 that works in schools, in public schools, can absolutely teach our children. I have full confidence that our teachers and our staff have the ability to pull these kids, regardless of their home situation, from a level 1 or 2 into at least a level 3, if not into a level 4. Our local teachers are phenomenal at their jobs. I know, I worked in the public school system right here in Ottawa. I have seen the teachers teach. I have seen teachers come together and share resources and work across, not only throughout their team for their grade, but pull other grades so that they can find out where the deficiencies are and what needs to be done. I have watched that. I know that I can sit here and say that I have full confidence in our public school staff, as well as the private schools that we have in our district, that these kids can learn. All of that being said, it's not just that we need to be addressing the homeschool situation. Yes, we want to make sure that those kids are learning. We want to make sure that the future of Kansas is well educated and equipped to take over our roles someday. But we also need to be looking at the public schools as well, and they are incredibly deficient as far as right now.
And I think that's just another illustration as to why we need to get more children in public schools, and whether it's accredited and the educators are educated enough to teach them, because we do have great schools here.
I find it highly offensive that you have just said that homeschoolers, the people running homeschools, are not educated enough to teach their own children.
No, there's just no accreditation or any certification or training or licensing.
understand.
That's all. I think there are some homeschoolers that do a great job, but the vast majority have some issues. And I just think that public funds need to go to public schools.
It's taxpayer
and that will
funds,
help
and
it.
that belongs with the taxpayers, and some of those homeschool. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, folks.
I want to add something on to that
Okay.
as well that I think is a little bit different perspective as well. I know a lot of homeschoolers. I know they're extremely well ran and are getting an education that is really unique and really good. Something that I learned, I have 9 school districts in House District 5, and this is not Ottawa specific, because I don't know how Ottawa's doing this right now, but this is another school district in District 5. Kids that are at level 2 and 1, which is one's the lowest level, 4 is the best, like that's the exceeding, 3 is at level, 2 is below level, and 1 is basically failing. They are actually in this school district not holding a single kid back. They're promoting every kid every year, even if they're at a 1 or a 2. When I was in school, that was unheard of. And so you're going to have kids who are graduating who are not reading and writing properly. I've talked to kids in other school districts outside of my district and teachers, and they are being told by administration to pass those kids, even when they literally can't write a paragraph at a junior level high school age. This doesn't make any sense to me. So fundamentally, I am not in the school system to know exactly why they are taking this approach, but this is something we as the people need to start pushing back on. What's going on? Why are you doing it that way? Why are we not holding kids back so they can get the proper education? What are we afraid of?
So I'm going to add to that. As the legislator, we have tried, and I put the bill in just a couple years ago again, to mandate 65% of funding go to the classroom and the teachers. And it gets killed every year. The most we've gotten passed, and that was when I was first up there, was a goal of 65%, not a mandate of 65%. So therein lies some of the problem, those taxpayer-funded lobbyists again. The objective is to get it to the classroom and to the students, to the teachers. The other thing, and the other thing is, we tried to pass legislation a couple of times now that if you cannot read proficient in 2nd grade or 3rd grade, that you would be held back. You shouldn't have to legislate that.
No.
The sad thing is that we are debating that in Topeka, but we can't get it passed. We cannot get it passed. So we were losing sight of what our K through 12 education system's for. Not the teachers. The teachers aren't losing sight.
Yep.
But overall, what the objective is for our K through 12 school systems. And so we need to take a good, hard look at this. How we did property taxes across the state, we had buy-in and input from all stakeholders. I think we need to do this for education also. Take a good, tough look at the system and see where we can make improvements, because we absolutely can do that.
Thank you so much for all the good questions and discussion that we've had this morning. I wanted to make one announcement that we have a legislative coffee scheduled for May 18th here But I think that we're going to be waiting to see if there's a special session or not. If there is, we will have the coffee. If there's not, we will not have it. Okay?
Okay.
And if we would like to have just a short, very short closing remark, if you'd like to do that, Senator Dyson can start.
I thank you guys again for engaging and coming out. Don't hesitate to reach out to us via email. I am getting overloaded with emails right now, but it's a good thing. And don't believe the rhetoric, the false information. I have not blocked any legislation for veterans. In fact, I have been instrumental in passing legislation to help support our disabled veterans and others in need, and especially senior citizens with that property tax freeze. Hopefully we can get that in 2096. I was asked about Representative LaTurner. We do want to give him and his family his best wishes. Franklin County is no longer in the 2nd District, you guys, disappointingly. So I am focused on, thankfully you still are in the Senate District though. So I appreciate everything you guys do, and thank you.
I want to thank everybody for coming out. I know it's a Saturday morning. I know that even though it's brisk outside, it's a beautiful day and you could be doing all kinds of different things. And the fact that you show up and you engage and you make sure that we are doing the job that we were sent to do is incredibly appreciated. We don't always agree on the path that we take to get things done. We're all Kansans, and we can all sit together in a room and respectably disagree on the path that we choose to take to fix the problems that we have or the issues that we want to see addressed. But we all know that there are problems that do need to be addressed, and I appreciate the conversation. And it is an incredible honor to go and be your voice and your vote in Topeka. It is an incredible privilege to represent our district. District 59, I'm a bit partial to us, but District 59 is not unique in how it's set up. We are not unique in the ways that we look at when we're looking at things, different communities in Kansas, but we are unique as to where we believe that we can handle the issues that we're facing. We don't need the government to come in and push us around and tell us how to be and what to do. That we can have these conversations and be well educated. And even when we disagree, we can do so with treating one another with dignity. And I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for having us this morning and your questions and your engagement and conversation and just giving us, insight and information that's important to you as well. I did want to end on one thing that just kind of follows up on the education piece of it. And this is something that's brand new to me that I learned here about a week ago around education. And I don't know the specifics for this area in Ottawa, but this is not that far from us that this is happening. And I'm not talking about Western Kansas. I'm talking about within driving distance here in the closer to Kansas City area at least, and other parts of this part of Kansas. But we have some fraud and skimming happening, and it should be of concern to each and one of us taxpayers. There's a school district not too far from here that 40% of the population in the school district are illegal immigrants, and they are not paying taxes. And so you look at not paying taxes, but you look at they don't speak English and are expecting to come to school to learn English when our classrooms and the teachers here know that you're not teaching English. Kids already know English, right? You're teaching the subjects that are part of the curriculum. And so there's a high level of failure, and it's bringing down some of the scores as well in those specific schools. But having 40% in one district, that's pretty concerning, and they're not paying into the system of the taxes. So I think when I go back, this is one of the things I'm going to be bringing to the attention to our caucus and to our leadership as well, that this is something that's happening today, and not sure what the answer is, but we need to start looking at this as something that's happening that actually is highly concerning. So I appreciate your guys' time today, and if you have questions or comments on that later, catch me, okay? Thanks.
Thank you very
I
much.
just wanted to apologize. I had a hat button hit me and my reptile brain took over and my normal frontal lobes went away. So I just wanted to apologize. I really do appreciate the work that you do. It's hard work. I don't agree with a lot of things, but I do, when my husband calls me on this all the time, I can get my reptile brain out of the way. I can actually talk intelligently about things. So
Thank you.
for sharing.